And good morning, everybody, and welcome to the studio here on Triple H 100.1 FM. You're listening to Small Biz Matters, broadcasting here live and across the community radio network all around Australia. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm your host, Alexi Boyd. I think I've said that 3 times now. And I'm really excited about today's program. Actually, I've waited a long time to have the lovely Sarah Harding across from me, who's going to impart an extraordinary amount of knowledge in regards to not only her area of expertise, but also her life experience, her generational experience, and what she's doing now to actually change the face of her business and evolve. And I think that's something we need to get a little bit better at as small businesses, is tapping into the different resources that are available to us, particularly when it comes to our personal brand. So marketing, it's no longer about printing off some flyers and popping them in letterboxes. My God, when I think of that, it's actually been quite a number of decades since it's been that. But it's also about your online presence. And some people can find that really confronting because they might automatically think, well, you know, there's some dark corners out there and I don't want those to get out. But you can curate and you can control the content that's out there about you as a business owner and you putting forward your expertise. And Sarah Harding from Y Advice has done a great job with putting that together in an extraordinarily short amount of time, actually. And we're going to talk to her about her process and a little bit about what she does and why she's so passionate about small business. Welcome to the program,
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Now, you and I met at a Meetup group, which you run. And let me just say, first of all, that I was super impressed with the way that the Meetup group itself was run and just the professionalism behind that. Now, we're going to talk a little bit later in the program about how you ran those and how they lead into your profile. But give me an indication as to why you're so passionate about small business and where you've come from to get to where you are today.
Cool. Okay. Well, I guess it started with my grandparents who were entrepreneurs. So in Manly back in the 60s, they started the first dive school because my granddad was a diver, obviously.
Wow.
So I guess from a younger age, you just become interested in what business is, how it affects families, what is it? And then I guess from there, my grandparents sort of instilled those values into my dad. So my mum and dad have owned businesses throughout most of my life, quite a few. They've been successful in some and unsuccessful in others. So I've got a really great background of what small business is and what sort of drives that and some of the challenges that it can present. So I guess having that experience growing up, that sort of instilled into me, seeing what it can actually, or the effects that it can actually have on your community, and how it can let you sort of live your passion and your dreams and how it can actually affect that. So I guess from there, that's why I decided to start my business, which I've been around for about 3 or 4 years now, as Y Advice, a financial advisor, and really passionate about helping small business owners and entrepreneurs because of my background, helping them understand their numbers, helping them get sort of set up with that and giving them that peace of mind so that they can actually run their businesses more effectively.
And that's very true because I think with that experience that you've got, it's a very holistic overarching view. If you're watching several generations go through several, and I'm presuming they're kind of different businesses, they weren't all on the same line of things, and you would go through the ebb and the flow of the emotional roller coaster that can be that in a family.
Definitely.
And I presume you've got siblings as well, and you all went through that together?
No, I'm actually an only child. So I think...
What do you think, what difference do you think that made?
Well, I think that meant that... the way I sort of see it is with my family business, if something goes wrong there, it all sort of comes back to me. So if I distance myself from that, then my parents really won't have anyone else that can help them. So I think you just naturally take on a bit more responsibility and understanding about, what it is their venture does and how it is that's affecting their lives. So I thought for myself, like I think if I had brothers and sisters, maybe I wouldn't have been so involved in the business. Maybe I wouldn't have taken that level of interest, but because it was just me, I sort of got that opportunity. So
let's talk about that disassociation. Just because before the program, you and I were talking about the importance of removing yourself and distancing yourself from your business almost on an emotional level. You've obviously sort of gained those skills as you went along to help so that you could be a support without being involved. That's kind of interesting skill set that you brought along the way. Why do you think, in your opinion, dealing with lots of different businesses across lots of different sectors, it is so important to have that arm's length away from the business itself as a person?
Well, I guess it really depends on the type of business that you want to build. So from my experience, there's two types. So there's the solopreneur, so somebody that really wants to use their skills and their passion to create a job for themselves, which gives them a certain lifestyle, and they really sort of want to focus on that. So I guess the present challenge of that is understanding that you may not actually have an asset to sell, and so that you can retire. So, and if you stop putting money into your super fund, then there's also a big risk there that you may love what you do, but you never may be able to stop that. So it's just being aware that if that's sort of the path for you in your business, you need to have a really good financial strategy outside of that to make sure that you've got options down the track. So I guess it's focusing on the short term, but also being aware of the long term as well, and sort of not sticking your head in the sand. The second type of business I saw from my family was an entity by itself. So it's building an organisation which is profitable. You may potentially have staff. It obviously gives you cash to live on and have a certain lifestyle. But at the same time, the idea of running a business like that is so that you can build an asset base, you can sell that asset base, and whatever money you've got left over can either be your retirement savings or can give you a decent lifestyle or whatever you're looking to do. So I guess with that, you've really got to take your emotions out of that, because those types of businesses have many challenges, some which are a result of you, but some a result of something else or outside of your control. So you've really got to manage that and, work with advisors, work with professionals to make sure that the time and effort you're putting into that type of business, you're actually going to seek that reward later on. And that's going to give you options in your life. So I think from looking at it from that perspective for two different types of businesses, it's just being aware that business is obviously about living your passion, doing what you're great at, and helping others, influencing others, providing a product or service. But at the same time, just being aware how that affects your life, how it affects your family, and making sure that you're not just focusing on the short term, because it's so easy just to focus on the short term sometimes, especially if you need to, pay your bills next week or go on that holiday next month. But just be aware that the decisions you're making today and the lifestyle you're building for yourself both have an outcome.
Hopefully our listeners out there have been able to listen to what you just said, because I really like the idea of being able to distinguish. Obviously there's others, but I really like the idea of distinguishing between either the solopreneur building a job, making a life for yourself around your skill set, versus the person who owns a business and an asset, and the importance of understanding the difference long term. You've either got something you're going to be able to sell, or you're doing something you're going to have to stop doing.
Yeah, definitely.
At some point. So I think that's a really, really great piece of advice. And I suppose when people are looking for a great financial planner in those circumstances, what sort of questions should they be asking? What should they expect back from that financial advisor to answer the questions, the long-term questions?
Well, I guess when choosing a financial advisor, it's one about you've got to have really great rapport with that person. I think you really need to like the person. That definitely goes well, because you're not going to take advice from someone you don't like.
Yeah.
You've got to trust that person. So if myself was looking for a financial advisor, I'd probably look at their background. So where have they come from? What are their qualifications? What experiences have they had in their personal and professional lives? Because I think that plays a big part in the type of advisor that they're going to be.
Could I ask you a question on that?
Yep,
Do you think it's absolutely crucial that they have themselves run businesses? Do you think that's really important?
I actually do, or had some connection to business, because unless you've been there and done it and had that experience, I don't know if you'd have the same level of empathy for your client, especially when they're going through their challenges. I feel that you need to actually be able to relate to them and understand what they're going through, and then provide solutions and guidance to get them through those times. Because in business, there's many, many challenges that come up. And if you've got that really strong relationship and rapport with your advisor, your client needs to be able to contact you and have that heart-to-heart if something's gone wrong at home, or the children are struggling, or something's happening. So you need to have that connection with them.
You need to be able to pick up the phone and be really honest.
Exactly, yep.
Yeah, and it's not the same relationship as you might have with, say, a business advisor, because these are the people who are thinking of it long term, whereas a business coach might only think of the next the next year or so. Sorry, coughing. That's a really good a tip for engaging with a financial advisor. Where do you find one?
Good question. So I guess it depends on your generation, because if you're a little bit older, I'd probably still say word of mouth is one of the strongest ways, and referrals are actually one of the strongest ways to find an appropriate advisor. So like if a friend of a friend has a really great advisor that they're speaking about, maybe check that out if they're in a similar situation to you. If you're a millennial, so a bit younger like myself, I think online's a great way to find out about, an advisor. You can then sort of have a look at their background, how active they are online as well, and make that assessment as to sort of how they've positioned themselves online. But I still think, like, even for my clients, the strongest relationships that I have are referrals from clients, because they've spoken about me, they know what I do, they know how I assist, and then they talk to their friends about what that is. And most of the time their friends are having similar challenges, so it just fits.
So you need to find someone who's probably specialised and worked with people in a similar circumstance such as yourself. Don't talk to if you're a consultant, maybe don't talk to the plumber about who he goes to when he doesn't have any kids and you've got adult children now and trying to think of something 10 years down the track, whereas he's thinking of something 30 years down the track.
Exactly. And have a look at the advisor's qualifications and the types of clients they assist. So who's their target market? How is it they can assist them? So, for example, like if a client has a self-managed super fund and they want to look for a new advisor because they're not happy where they're at, you need to find an advisor that services clients with those funds. Like it's, don't go to the advisor down the road that potentially isn't qualified, doesn't help those types of clients. They're not going to be able to give you the right advice. So that is important as well in regards to your situation and the expertise and the experience of that advisor.
What do you think the Royal Commission's done to the sector?
Oh, God. I could talk about this all day.
No, but just in terms of, was there a major change for the industry from your perspective, or was it really just people go, okay, I feel like I'm a little bit more confident with someone such as yourself because you've got the qualifications or because you're not part of a, bank?
Yeah. Look, I think there's been some major problems in the industry for a very long time, and I think now we're only just starting to address them. I think the Royal Commission will have a very positive, it will bring positive aspects to the industry because it will, one, raise education standards. So obviously being a younger advisor, I've got all of the education, but there are advisors out there that may have heaps of experience but just, aren't keeping up to date with that education piece.
I'm surprised there isn't a sort of CPD credit.
Oh, we all have to do CPDs.
It's
just the level of extra accreditation that these advisors need to do to get them back into the mindset of studying and sort of, developing their knowledge and all of that, which I think is actually a great thing because I know from my parents, they've been stuck in business for a very long time, and you can often get somewhat complacent to what's going on outside of your industry because you're doing well. So I think it will be a great thing for our industry to actually raise those education standards. But I think there will also be a lot of advisors that leave the industry as a result because the government really has a job to do in getting that balance correct, so that it doesn't just, stop a lot of business owners from running their business and, they're able to actually meet those standards.
Yeah.
But I think once we implement the higher education standards, then people will start to see our industry as more of a profession and they'll start to We'll start to get that trust back because the Royal Commission has just sort of damaged all of that. They've exposed all of the negative things that were happening at these banks and larger organisations, and obviously that needed to occur. But now we've got a really big job to do to make sure that we can actually rebuild that trust with our clients. And look, there's so many small business owners out there that aren't linked to these bigger organisations, and some of them have actually suffered as a result. So, yeah.
I suppose, any negative feedback or negative media content is always going to have an effect on any industry, really. So, like you said, you've just got to build it up from a foundation once again.
Yeah, exactly.
And be one of the good guys.
Exactly, yeah.
It's funny that I said that because I wanted to talk to you today about what it's like to be a young entrepreneur female in an extremely male-dominated industry.
Yep.
How do you... Is that what the Meetup group is? How have you positioned yourself, and do you find that intimidating? Because I have to say, as a woman, I would be incredibly intimidated. That's just maybe my personality, but it's amazing that you've got to where you are with a fantastic client base in a male-dominated world. Have you let that affect you, or do you kind of just brush it off? Or is it a thing that I'm just looking at and saying, that's happening, but you're like, no, it's not, it's fine?
Yeah. Look, I don't mind men. I get on with them really well. I think some of the opportunities that I've had in my life, especially from my family, have actually come from men. So I don't see that in a negative way. I actually prefer connecting with them sometimes as well over women, depending on the situation. But look, as soon as I started taking my business more seriously, I started to realise that most of the people in my life were actually men. So funny that. I just find it very difficult to find other ambitious females on the same path, especially in the industry as well.
And especially at your age.
Exactly, yeah, definitely. But I think I probably was a bit intimidated when I first got started. But when I moved to Sydney, I was just in the mindset of putting myself out there, meeting new people and, networking and developing that profile. So I think over time I just developed skills to be able to, to handle being around a bunch of men and to be confident as well. Because, when I was first starting out, I did actually find it very intimidating to deal with my boss and very strong men. But I think just over time, I've learned that, I've got my confidence up. I've developed my skill set, and I really have nothing to worry about now.
Well, some interesting insights, Sarah. That's really great, because I think as more and more females go into entrepreneurship and go into industries that might be currently dominated, they need to start finding their own path and feeling the confidence that you do. That means they're not affected by it. We're going to take a quick break here on Small Biz Matters, and we'll be back after this. You are listening to Triple H and the CRN Community Radio Network across Australia. So we're talking today to Sarah Harding, who is a financial advisor with Y Advice. And the reason why I brought her on the program was to talk about her use of the platform Meetup. This was something that I was quite impressed with. Those who are regular listeners will know I'm a serial networker. Love it. I just love talking to people, really. It's not about growing my business. It's just about having a chat. And I really appreciated your event and how well it was run. Great speakers, very well organised. Loved the use of the Meetup platform, and was impressed by the fact that you've been doing it for a long time. So a lot of people kind of come along, they do a flash in the pan, they do one or two events. Has it been an integral part to the success of building your profile? Yeah,
I think it's really gotten my name out there. It's really sort of built my profile, and it's really helped me with my business. It's also helped me with my confidence as well, public speaking. But just it's given me skills to collaborate with others, develop relationships, like all of those extra add-ons that you don't think running an event will actually help you with. But I guess my journey, when I moved to Sydney, other than my family, I didn't know anybody. So, and I always knew I wanted to start a business, and I knew from my parents' experience that starting a business and being successful is actually having the ability to put yourself out there and develop those relationships. So I guess I just stumbled upon Meetup. I was using it in Brisbane, but the Brisbane market's definitely very different to Sydney, and there was probably like one event every two or 3 months. So I didn't really get on board with it there, but sort of decided to have a look at it and to use it when I sort of started out here in Sydney. So my event started off being really, really casual with a bunch of my friends that were really, I think, only there to get drunk at bars.
They were being supportive.
Yes, very supportive, but was also very distracting also. So I sort of started there and started using the Meetup platform, and just as a way to get people to register so I knew who would come along and to continue to keep engaging with those people as well. So I guess from there it just grew. I grew. I sort of started to learn what was working and what wasn't working, and people would come and give me some advice and feedback based on, other events they were going to, and I'd always listen to that. So from there I sort of just learned and grew. to a point where I realised probably about a year and a half ago that the more work you put in and the better run your event is, and the more you actually, put in the effort to get great people into the room, the more success you're actually going to have out of these events. So, but that came after, I don't even know how many events I did before I realised that, probably about 10. But yeah, I sort of realised that, if I do take this a bit more seriously, if I give the event a bit more structure, if I sort of tap into not only my network, but, networks of other people that would be presenting, you get a much better outcome. But you also, to develop that client or that database, you need to be consistent. So you need to be consistently, sharing value and helping. So every time I run an event, I think now, how can I help these people? Like, how can I add value to these people? So I don't really try and think, how can I sell more or how can I get another client? It's about how can I best provide value to people coming, because you just never know where your clients are going to come from. Someone could come to an event and listen to what you have to say, go home and tell, a friend or a family member, and then all of a sudden they may need your help. But if you've just sort of thought about it as in, I need to sell to these people or I need to get, so many sales from the event, then you're almost going to miss that authenticity and you're probably going to put a lot of people off. And then that becomes your reputation. And Sydney, like, even though I grew up in Gladstone, which was very small, Sydney's starting to become very small. So you just have to always think about, like, what you're saying and how you're saying it and how that will be interpreted by others, because that will get you the best results, because reputation's everything, honestly. Like,
and that's a really good point you make there, because it's almost the way you approach any form of, let's face it, it is a kind of a way of advertising yourself and building your reputation. The way you approach that has to be thought out.
Yep.
But there's nothing wrong with making mistakes along the way.
Oh, definitely.
Do you find people can be quite forgiving, or do people kind of turn up to these events and go, that was crap, I'm never coming back again?
Look, you might get a bit of that to begin with, and you've just got to deal with that. I've had some pretty bad events, I will admit, like where I've been sick, I haven't been able to get any help, I haven't really marketed the event really well, so hardly anyone turns up. Then I've probably done it at a bar, so attracting the wrong types of people that aren't really there to learn anything, are just there to get drunk. But I think it's important to just learn. Like, sometimes when, you have the pain of, like, annoying somebody, that gives you the motivation to make sure you don't do that next time. You know what I mean? You almost need that level of failure to be driven towards that successful outcome, because how to sort of structure that next time.
And it goes to what you were saying before about the importance of being empathetic as a business owner towards looking at these people who are sitting in the room almost as though they're not necessarily your potential clients, but they are your clients at the time that they're sitting there. Yeah. Because they're absorbing your energy, and you need to be able to read the room and see what their responses are to maybe a couple of awkward things that you say, and your brain goes, oh, won't say that again.
Yeah.
The way the room just reacted wasn't so great.
Exactly, yeah. But I think as well, like, people want the really great event outcome to begin with.
What do you think they want? I mean, this is a real pearl, because you've run so many of these events. Yeah. If I was out there and I wanted to start one of these things for the reason that you have in building my profile and giving to the community and giving people great content, who do I want to come to this event, and what do I want them to get out of it? Have a big think about who you actually want to attract and how your event can be positioned to attract those people. So, for example, running an event, and I've done it at a bar. So the types of people you're most likely going to attract are people that, love to, go out to bars after work. And if that's not the type of person that you're trying to attract to the event, is that the best place to have the event? So it's really thinking through who's my target client, who do I really want in the room, and how can we best get those people in the room. So is a breakfast event better? Is a lunchtime event better? When is best for these people to come, and then where is best to house those people to actually attract them to come as well. So just thinking through that audience piece will, I think, help you attract more of who you actually want in the room as well. But that took me quite a while to sort of figure that out, and to learn through my mistakes to be able to understand that as well. But I've like I said before,
I find that people want all of that knowledge and experience and success straight up. So what happens is they start their meetup group and they run one or two, they learn a couple of things, but then it's like, I'm not getting any outcomes from this, so it's not working. So I don't think you can really have or should have that attitude. I think you should just learn from your events, refine and keep going, and you'll be surprised at the traction you actually develop over time, but nothing happens overnight. Like, it's just not the way business works.
And it looks crappy if you've just run 2 events, because those 2 events under your name sit there forever.
People start to judge you that you're somebody that doesn't follow through as well, and that's really important, because if you want to be successful in business, it's all about your characteristics as well and the type of person that you are. And, you know, because people look at that. You're out there on display. Like,
welcome to the interweb.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the cost, because should anyone coming into it be thinking that they're going to make a profit, or should they be walking into it assuming they're going to make a slight loss on each of these things? And what would be a budget of a city-based event with, say, 30 to 50 people in the room? What can you expect it to cost you? Because what's the audience expectations, first of all, when it comes to catering?
Yep.
And what can you expect it to cost you?
Yeah, look, I think people don't expect these events to be that well catered, but the better you can cater these events, the more success I think you're going to have it as well, because people, it's basically comfort. People come and they know they're going to get really great food. But at the same time, I've over-catered in the past, and I've been like, why have I spent so much on food when people just don't want to eat? So it's a really hard one. But look, I think 30 to 50 people in the room, like the price point would probably be between $10 and $50, depending on, you know, how great your speakers are, or, you know, how well you can engage people before the event and the time of the year. But yeah, it's a hard one. Look, I think you're doing well starting out if you don't make a loss and it doesn't cost you. But I had to run events for free, which was a lot of my time and, you know, a lot of resources for a while to be able to sort of get the traction in my database to be able to charge for an event. I now run events at WeWork, which I'm a member of, so that obviously has a certain cost as well, because I, you know, use their room and their facility. But I think you just have to put in that work to get the traction, so to get the word of mouth before you can, and the skill set before you can start charging. Because if I go to a paid event, I expect that event will be well run. There'll be great speakers. There may potentially be some catering. You know, I'm there for networking purposes, so I want to network with some really great businesses. So there's that level of expectation there if you are starting to charge.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that confidence and that skill set yet, free events can work so that you get that confidence and you refine your skill set and you learn as you go.
I think that one of the other things that a lot of people who run these events, the mistake they make is that they cater the first 3 or 4 really well as a hook to get people to come in.
Yep.
And then you'll rock up to the 5th one and there'll be nothing there. And you're like, but the last 3, I got a really good meal and now I'm just going to go home really hungry and resentful.
And that sets expectations. Look, I know people that run free events and the catering's really not that great. And as a result, they can get more people in the room. But for somebody like myself, I want more business owners in the room. So I sort of set a price. I provide a little bit more in regards to catering, better room as well. And obviously I don't get as many numbers as they will, but I tend to find that the people that come are usually more committed, and they're usually business owners that actually want to learn something and grow versus just having anyone and everyone. So it's just a bit of a different approach based on the types of people that you want to come to your events.
And what about the venue? Do you think it's really important that it is a business-based venue if it's a business-based event?
Yeah, definitely. So anything in a bar or like that, like I said, you're going to attract those people that are either in the habit or want to go to bars after work.
What about a community hall?
Oh, I haven't actually done one at a community hall, but I think it just depends on the location of that community hall. So, like if it was somewhere sort of
Suburban,
yeah, and you wanted to attract Sydney-based people, then I think you're probably going to have some issues there because, you know, as soon as you hit the bridge in Sydney, people don't want to go outside
tell me
of
about
that.
it.
So...
Tell me about it,
yeah.
says the person who's running things on the North Shore.
Yeah.
So it is, and I guess that's something that you have to consider because a lot of people will maybe have a great event and then get disappointed with the way the next one doesn't run the same way. But if you continue to be consistent and the expectation is always there and you always have great speakers, how do you find the balance? Because I think there's some groups out there that really get this wrong. How do you find the balance between the right amount of networking, right, and the right amount of speaking? Say you've got a 2-hour event.
Yeah.
What's the golden time, the golden number for speakers versus networking time?
Good question. So I think when you arrive at a networking event, you want about 10 to 15 minutes to sort of settle in, have a chat to somebody next to you, but don't get too distracted. So I find if you have too much networking time at the start, people get too involved in their conversations with others that they meet, and then all of a sudden you've lost them. So probably about 15, 20 minutes max, so that people can sort of sit down, relax, say hi to some friends that they may know there. Then you get started. Then generally I probably wouldn't have presentations longer than about 45 minutes to an hour with consistent breaks throughout. Because what I tend to find is that, especially if it's an after-hours event, people need to stretch their legs, get up.
Because they fall asleep.
Exactly, yeah. So you need to keep having those breaks.
That's what I really liked, actually. You've just reminded me when I attended your event, that's what I really appreciated about the structure. I liked the way you had little breakout sessions. So we had little activities or things to talk about with the person next to us, and not just the person next to us, but you forced us to stand up and walk around the room, and then you were quite strict about when getting people to sit back down.
Exactly, yeah.
It's almost like, curating a classroom.
Exactly, yes.
Of 9-year-olds.
You have to keep everyone on the agenda.
Yeah.
And then you'd have the speaker, you'd do all of that sort of stuff, and then at the end, look, I'd probably, it depends on how far or how late the event goes, but usually about half an hour at the end so that people can sort of, have a chat, meet some new people, and then you start wrapping things up. So, but I'm finding now that because we're helping business owners and attracting more business owners into the room, our events don't run as late. Whereas when you do them at bars, because people associate that, it's social, people want to stay around till 10:30, 11 at night because they're there to get drunk or they're there to have wine. So it's much harder for you to keep that strict agenda because it's a more casual sense. Even pubs, bars, anywhere where you can hold that room, people associate getting drunk with your event, and sometimes that can actually deter from what you're trying to do there.
And that's not a great reputation builder, is it?
Exactly, yeah. And I had to obviously go through that to realise and come out the other end.
Beginning to see that was one of your big learning curves.
Exactly, yeah.
Don't use a bar. Unless that's the sort of people, and unless that's the vibe you want to have.
Exactly, and that the activities that you're doing, resonate with those types of people, then go for it. But if you are focusing on business and you're a bit more serious about that, and it's more to do with personal development, getting outcomes, helping people with their challenges, you need to have a more professional tense, I think, with those events.
We're just going to take a quick break here on Small Biz Matters with Alexi Boyd. We'll be back after these community service announcements. And you are live and local here in Triple H 100.1 FM with Alexi Boyd and Small Biz Matters. We've been talking to Sarah Harding from Y Advice all about her experience with the platform, which is Meetup, and how she's used that as a tool to not only grow her reputation and her online presence, but also to build great events. Sarah, tell me, when you were beginning this journey of using meetups as an opportunity to create networking events with which to brand yourself, did you envisage that they would be this successful, at this length of time down the track? Did you expect it to happen faster? Did you expect yourself to get this sort of reputation, or were you just using it as a, let's see what happens?
Well, I think this comes back to my personality, as my mum says. I'm somebody that really follows through with what they say, and I've always had that type of personality. So I think starting out, I always wanted to follow through with running really great events and adding that value. So I think from the expectation of having them be more successful sooner, definitely. I think as a millennial, we all want everything yesterday. So, but I think this is one of the hardest things to get right in business, is to predict how fast it's going to take you to get somewhere, or how much time or effort or energy it's going to take you to get to that next level, or for the growth to occur. But that's one of the hardest things, I think, in business to predict. Hence why I think it's really good to ensure you've got the right support around you, like through professionals, accountants, advisors, to keep you on track for that. Because it's very easy to get off track if things don't happen as soon as you want them to. So I think it's really important to have that accountability and find that right support network that really keeps you on track to the goals that you set for yourself, to help you actually implement what you want to implement.
What was your goal in the beginning when you started these meetup groups? What did you see this as?
Well, I guess it was a way to brand myself, to get myself out there. It was also a way for me to get in front of more people, to help more people as well, because I think working one-on-one with people is great, but it doesn't get you the same results as getting in front of an audience of people.
It's just not very good time management.
Exactly,
really.
Time management, yeah, exactly. So do you want to sit one-on-one with everybody and, over 10 years and whatever? Whereas if you get in front of a bigger audience and you're more targeted and more specific, you're more likely to create relationships, more likely that people are going to actually speak about you, and those opportunities will come faster than if you just did one-on-one forever.
So it's kind of like accelerating not only your brand but getting out there. And talking to more people at once. That's
business. You have to get out there. I learnt that from my personal experiences at home with my family. Like the most profitable years of my family's business was when my dad was out there creating relationships, putting in the work. And then I think people get somewhat complacent when they reach success. So you've got to keep coming back to where you're at and what you need to do to grow to that next level. And I really do think that will change as you grow. So, like the Meetup platform, as I grow and develop my events, we may look at other platforms that are better suited for the types of clients we've got. But it was great to get started. So it was a great home and a database to connect with people and keep in touch with people. And I'm actually finding it quite difficult to find other platforms where you can actually do that as well. So, so you've really, and that comes back to business. You've really got to look at your systems and processes and make sure you're up to date and keep up to date with those in your business.
How are you going to take it to the next level now that you've had this success? Are you planning on making them bigger? Are you planning on implementing different types of processes to make them a better event? Where do you see it going from now?
I've actually launched a membership for the event, so people can come and join the group, have the ability to present, come and connect with other business owners, add value. And that was sort of born out of the fact that I think in business, it's very important to keep up to date with what's going on out there. So from a marketing perspective, sales, finance, all of that sort of stuff, you just have to keep up to date. And when you're so busy running your business, often that can get left behind. What I want the group, or where I sort of see the group going, is that there'll be a number of different businesses from a number of different industries that come and join and come to the networking events, collaborate, and it can really just be a great community of people helping each other in business. I am hiring a videographer as well, so going to spend some money really marketing the events and getting them out there to the public and making them, look attractive and engaging and all of that sort of stuff. And just taking the events to the next level. I'll probably still have a cap on how many people I want to come to the events.
So you're not looking at becoming bigger than Ben Hur, do you think? Where does that... what's the cap?
I would love to contribute to events like that, but I don't see the group going to be that size because I still have my financial advice business that I'm running as well.
Oh, yeah, that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I love working with my clients. So the events and the community and the value that we're creating at those events will definitely become part of my service offering for my clients. But at the same time, they need to be manageable. So you don't want to grow too big too soon and all of a sudden just burn a whole heap of people, because I've seen that happen as well.
It's very interesting the way you're speaking, because clearly when you started the events, it wasn't that you went, right, I envisage them getting to this size and I envisage having these sort of speakers and this sort of thing happening, and then I envisage getting to this stage by this date. It sounds as though it's really evolved, and in doing that you've implemented change along the way depending on which way it's going. But how do you, and I guess this is the slow burn question, isn't it? How do you recognise when something is suddenly going to become your main business as opposed to your client work. When do you flick the switch and so down your tools with your other... Do you think you could ever do that? Do you think these events will become a core business for you?
Well, I think it comes back to what I actually love doing in my business and doing what I love doing in my business and outsourcing the rest. So it's building a business that's scalable, that has staff and employees, that have systems and processes to manage that work so that you can spend more time doing the things that you love. And I think in my eyes, success in business is that. So if you're stuck doing things that you hate, obviously something's going wrong there. You need to obviously outsource or, hire a professional coach or whatever, but you need to have a look at what you're doing, because I honestly feel like success in business is doing what you love, what you're passionate about. And for me, that's obviously, contributing here and going to events and running events and being in front of people. So I need to find a way to build a business that allows me to do that.
Well, that's a really good way to sum up, actually. So I'd like to thank you very much for coming on the show today, Sarah. It's been fascinating to hear how you've implemented Meetup in this way of building your brand online, but also how you've taken the skills you've developed generationally and brought them through to your business as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
You've been listening to Small Biz Matters with Alexi Boyd here on Triple H and across Australia on the Community Radio Network. If you've missed any of today's program, you can, of course, catch up by subscribing to Small Biz Matters on iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, you can also listen to over 120 of these fabulous podcasts on our website and YouTube channel, smallbizmatters.com.au. Thanks very much for listening today. We'll be back next week with another great guest. This has been Small Biz Matters with Alexi Boyd.